Story 1. I've noticed that I have a very different sense of time passing since I'm not attached to the school calendar. I tend to not notice it passing as much, and then abruptly it seems to catch up to me. Story 2. Cannot use the kids as an excuse to get out of social engagements you do not want to go to. I solve this problem with these 7 easy words your social anxiety does not want you to know about. I do not want to go to that. Story 3. If you like kids and want to volunteer with them, I found that not having one already gets more than a few raised eyebrows and questions like, well, why are you interested? I'm not a kid snatcher. I just really enjoy it when I can give the kids back afterwards. Story 4. In general, you lose all your friends who have children. Parents socialize when the children play, and you aren't invited, so you miss out. Eventually, you stop getting invited to most things because you're just not around enough to be included in the plans. Story 5. So, I'm not in favor of procreation at all. I don't have children and don't want them, but there are definitely downsides to it, though to be fair, there are also downsides to having children too. Mainly, having kids can be extremely fulfilling and a rewarding experience. Seeing a human being that is part of you and part of someone you love deeply, at least in theory, grow and develop can be profoundly rewarding. It's wonderful to see them learn new things, engage in the world, and blossom into a full-fledged adult. It's also fun to show them your favorite things and see how they react, like movies and video games. Of course, this can be accomplished without having biological children. I just want to share my thoughts as a counter to all the cynicism you see regarding families and children. Story 6. No one to help you out in your old age. I'm dealing with this reality right now. My dad is in a rehabilitation facility for a broken hip, and anything he needs or wants I get for him. I'm pretty much the only person who visits him. Realistically, I'm the only person he's got. I've got no kids, no significant other, nobody I can really lean on, and I've come to the very sobering realization that if or when something like that happens to me in old age, I am in trouble. Story 7. I am kind of surprised to not see this answer yet. Most of my child-free friends complain about how other people tend to assume their life is less important. Work volunteers you to work late because no one is at home needing you. Others expect you to be free for errands or inconvenient things. People do not understand why you cannot just drop everything because nothing in a child-free personal life could possibly be as important as children. Story 8. Honestly, the issues we get from our families. We are still referred to as the kids, even though we are in our 40s and have been married for 18 years. We do what we want on the weekends and spend money on our hobbies and pursuits. That has morphed into this weird, implied arrested development our families put on us. Even though we have a high credit score, new cars, full-time jobs, and a roof over our heads, it's as if we somehow don't know what being an adult is. Story 9. Sometimes I forget the school schedule. So when school starts up in September or August or whenever, I don't account for additional traffic around schools and sometimes run late. If I had kids, I wouldn't have that problem, since I would have prepared myself long ago. Story 10. People constantly ask why you do not have them. You do not get those nice tax bonuses for having them. You are expected to schedule your life around other people's children, such as coworkers taking off for spring break. People assume you hate children. People assume you have no need for raises, vacations, and more, because you do not have children to provide for. You and your partner or roommates will never be considered a family because you do not have children. And most importantly, you cannot go to the playground and use the swings. People assume you are creepy. Story 11. Honestly, reading through this thread is really interesting because it highlights the variability of people and their goals and values. For me personally, there are absolutely no cons to not having kids. I am childless and will remain that way. Everything people point out as a pro to having kids is something I do not want in my life. Meanwhile, there are people in this comment section who could not fathom not having kids. To be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Good on you, good parents in this comment section. But I don't know, it's just sort of interesting. All the pros and things these people want or couldn't live without are things I could not stand having constantly. Story 12. It's a different kind of love. Having someone you die for without a second thought seems bad from the outside because it's so other-focused. But it's a fierce love that you can't experience any other way. And most people don't actually have to jump in front of a bus, so the risk is low. So you missed that. It's amazing. I'm sure there are amazing things I've missed by having kids and have no reference for. But since you asked about the con, missing that is a big one. Story 13. It's hard to say because child-free people are so defensive about this issue. You can see it from the answers here, which I get because I was child-free my entire life. It wasn't until recently that I realized I made a mistake. There are some obvious cons despite the resistance to accept them. Loneliness as you age is probably the biggest. I think a lot of child-free people are kidding themselves that they'll have a full social life at 70, 80, 90, or that nieces or nephews will care about them. Being alone on the holidays might be an issue. Another concern is help with things as your body and mind deteriorate. I work in a clinic, and patients who can't drive will often have their adult children bring them in. Childless elders will probably need to rely more on social services and may need to live in a nursing home sooner. Some of these services may not exist or be unaffordable by that time. I'm not saying these are reasons to have kids. They're not. No one should have kids because they're scared of being alone, but these are realities. Edited to add. I'd also like to add, since this post has received some attention, someone said that I should visit a nursing home and see that having kids is no guarantee that you'll be visited. Well, I'm a nurse and worked in a nursing home for a decade. It was actually that experience that changed me from child-free to childless. I saw over and over that the patients who didn't have kids would literally stay in their beds until their condition worsened, whereas the ones with kids fared better. Did all the kids visit all the time? No, but they visited just enough that the ones with adult children received better care. In a decade, I don't recall a single niece or nephew visiting anyone. I think the idea that kids are no guarantee of care is another excuse from child-free people. When I would call the adult children who never visited and tell them their parent was doing poorly, often the adult children would tell me they were estranged from their parent. As long as you're a decent parent, it's highly unlikely your kids will become estranged from you. I had one lady tell me she didn't care to visit her dad because he abused her as a child. These aren't good people and parents that get abandoned, and most people do get visits. I think another excuse is, I'll just end my life. Really, in the United States, you think that'll be legal on the federal level by then? Unless you're somewhere like Washington, it's probably not going to be an option. So what are you going to do? Your mind and body are failing, but you're going to muster up the funds and courage to travel for this? Or are you going to end your life alone in your house? When are you going to do this? When you can't drive anymore, or when you get lonely? Really stop and think about this because most mentally healthy people aren't going to commit suicide. Story 14. If I wasn't a parent, I wouldn't have this bond that's more amazing than any other I've experienced. My daughter is like a piece of my heart, out there walking around in the world. The thing is that not everyone gets this kind of relationship. I have friends with similarly aged kids, and it's not the same kind of love fest. Another pro is that I'm very motivated to do things as a mom that I wouldn't bother doing for myself, especially in terms of healthy food and living, but also professionally. So, I guess the con would be not knowing what you might be capable of if you had a child, maybe a lot more than you thought. Story 15. I was very much against the idea of having kids. Then I had kids, and it unlocked a part of my brain I had no idea existed. I wouldn't have regretted having kids because I wouldn't have known what I was giving up. I probably would have been fine. Now that I know what I unlocked, I am so grateful I didn't live without this. The con is that you don't know what you are missing. Could be bad, it could be good, like any life-altering decision. Maybe your hypothetical kids are great people, and maybe they become something you fear. That's a scary thought, and I get it. Story 16. As a parent, there are very few negatives. It is the positives that non-parents are missing. Honestly, if you are not driven to have children, then don't. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that decision, and little to no negatives come from it. This is a much better path than just having children versus deciding to have and raise children. This is the key difference in my mind. My partner and I decided we will have and raise children to adulthood, not just have children. If you are not actively looking forward to raising them and ensuring they become productive adults, then just don't. Society will be better off with that decision. Story 17. As a child-free person with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, I am not forced to have any kind of structure or routine outside of my job. On the other hand, having to be responsible for the structure and routine of a tiny, entirely dependent human sounds exhausting and impossible to me. Story 18. Pretty much every drawback is actually caused by other adults and by a hyper-individualized society in general, not a lack of children in and of itself. So depending on how you look at it, there are either many drawbacks or none at all. Loneliness in old age? That's caused by not having a social life with people of varying ages. Not having someone to care for you in old age. That's caused by living in a society that doesn't view it as a group effort to care for elders and a struggling economic system that makes it hard to keep enough money to afford personalized care for end of life. Missing out on friendships with people who do have kids. That's caused by them not prioritizing adult-only time and by living in a society that doesn't have good support networks for parents. In a more communal setting, where parents are better able to leave their kids with someone else for an afternoon, they would be able to spend time just as adults. Fielding the constant annoying remarks and questions about the fact that you don't have kids, not being taken seriously as a real adult because you haven't reproduced, having your time, your life, and your love discounted because you didn't increase the population, that's caused by other people being selfish. Not having a legacy, that's caused by a societal obsession with fame. If you want a legacy, do something in life that matters, do something that has a big impact on many other people. Having unprotected heterosexual intercourse isn't a legacy unless you get famous for having a large number of sets of twins or something. Not having another living creature love you, that's honestly not caused by other adults, but rather by yourself having some issues that need to be resolved. Creating a whole other person isn't going to help that situation. It's irrelevant and a good way to end up with a kid who doesn't talk to you when they're an adult. Story 19. Have to listen to people ramble on about how one day you will wish you had kids. No, I won't wish that, I never will. Please leave my private matters out of this. Story 20. I'm a 34-year-old man and have had a vasectomy. I have zero regrets as I have a great career, an active social life, and am generally happy. The major downside of not having kids is simply not raising children. Seeing the world through the eyes of these curious, weird, annoying, hilarious creatures and supporting them through the good and the bad. I've worked in youth groups and love my nephews to death. Not having my own kids is more of a business choice ultimately. However, I have no doubt raising them can be one of the most uniquely rewarding experiences life has to offer. Story 21. None. I have more money, more time, and a great relationship with my partner because we can go anywhere and do anything on a whim. Plus, I didn't ruin my body by having a baby. Story 22. Adult children are freaking awesome. I have learned so many new hobbies and read books I would not have read if it were not for my kid. I have grown exponentially as a person, thanks to them. Yes, small kids are a lot of work, but grown kids are a whole different and wonderful dynamic. Story 23. You would miss out on all the moments children give you. The other day, my daughter looked me in the eye when I was about to go to work and said, "Daddy, don't get fat today. I want my freedom and money and all that, but I'm aging either way, and it will be nice to have something to care about as I get old. I don't want to be 25 with children, but I don't want to be 75 without them." Story 24. Nothing at all, in my humble opinion. I am 46 years old and have never been interested in kids. I love my life. I can tell people really have a problem when I express this. They always think it's because I couldn't conceive, and when I tell them I never wanted kids, it's usually a little shocking. They always say that if I had them, I would feel different. Now that I'm older, I don't get that, but it was always the first thing people said. When they're yours, it's different. No thanks. Story 25. For me, it's not being able to relate every time family members or friends talk about what it's like to raise their children or give birth. It also feels frustrating when people assume your life is much easier just because you don't have children or you're single. As a single woman who is 37, it's already challenging enough to manage my finances by myself. I work several part-time jobs in addition to my full-time job just so I can support myself and also save for the future. It's difficult every time something in my household goes wrong, and I have to resolve the issues without help. Story 26. I have not found any cons yet. I never played with dolls as a child, and I was pretty sure I knew by age 5 that I was not mommy material. Tubes tied at 21. Now 55. No regrets. And I cannot think of any negatives other than I know my mother would have been a fantastic grandmother.